This meeting is being recorded.
This one.
Yeah.
The world.
I had to help Lauren and Ashley, but then Ashley has her own.
Hey everybody, I'm going to give everybody some time to get connected. If you can for me, just mute your microphones for me. Throughout the social, we will be taking questions. You can either put those in the chat or use the raise your hand symbol. We'd love to hear any questions that y'all have. Trying to check and see. We got everybody. All right, so good evening, and thank you all for joining us for this social on the unique approaches on how to share our profession. My name is Macy Frederick. I'm a PTA. Also run the APTA, PTA social media pages, and a caucus alternative representative for Alabama. Joining us today is Laura and Ken. They have a podcast, which I love, with really, really great content. So I'm going to be picking their brains this evening. So just a reminder, turning off your microphones, and then if you have any questions or comments, please chat them while we're getting going. All right, so Laura, do you want to start us off with telling us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So I have been a PTA, oh goodness gracious, now I gotta do that. For about over 5 years now. I come from a PTA background. My mom is also a PTA in California. I kind of grew up around it. I currently live in Las Vegas and practicing out here. I have a husband and a puppy who's not really a puppy. He's 7 years old, and he is just a handful and lovely. But yeah, that's a little bit about me.
All right, what about you, Ken?
So hi, I'm Ken. So I'm also a PTA. I've been practicing for about 1 year now. Most of that was in an outpatient clinic. So all my experience and most of our podcast is based on kind of outpatient settings. That's where Laura and I actually met, was in an outpatient setting. Kind of personal life, I just kind of outdoorsy, kind of doing anything active really. And I also have a little puppy, and he's 1 year old. More of a handful. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I'm still kind of fresh to all of this. It's just being a PTA. It's been a lot of fun.
Don't let me fool you though. He's got a good background. He was actually, the way we met is he was a technician prior to being a PTA, and so he was the technician that I started working after school, and that's kind of how we met and pursued and got along, and yeah, so become good friends too on top of it.
That's true.
Good. Alrighty, Laura, I'm going back to you. So what made y'all want to start this podcast?
So for me, what really wanted to start the podcast is Ken came to me with the idea and was like, hey, I really want to do something that just kind of gives back to the community. I want to just kind of talk about it. I think this is a cool way to do it. And the more I thought about it at the time, I had taken actually a step back from treating because I had gone through Achilles tendon surgery, 2 of them actually. And so they weren't healing correctly. And I was having struggle walking. And so I was like, well, this is a great way for me to stay in my field and stay active and be up in knowledge by doing some research and talking about it. And then also just getting to be able to talk about our field in a very open conversations, because sometimes I feel like when we talk about it with other people, they have very strong opinions and it can't just be discussed. It's just like, this is what we do. And so we wanted to kind of bring up I definitely wanted to bring up different ideas and different approaches and opinions and thought processes of where we can just talk it out and talk as a community too, and see if that helps people with maybe some of the settings that they're in, and give a unique perspective on it too, as I've been a patient within the field too. So.
Okay, awesome. So Ken, how did you get started with the podcast process?
So at first it kind of just was a fun little project idea. Laura came up to me a couple times when she took on her new job. She was working more behind a desk, and she would always tell me, like, one of her coworkers would kind of ask for her for advice, and she would always tell me like how much she misses the field. And I figured this was another way for her to either get back involved. For me personally, when I first started being a PTA, it's just crazy how much the learning doesn't stop once you graduate. Like, it continues well beyond that. So I felt like maybe the podcast would be another way to share our experiences with either new grads, or potentially have new people come on and either teach us or teach our listeners kind of new techniques, new approaches, and just kind of learn more all around. Because like I said, like, the learning never really stops.
Never stops, ever. That's for sure. I feel like I'm always doing CU courses and trying to learn a better way because every patient is different and responds different. So one thing I did for one person is not going to work for the next. So we're lifelong learners for sure.
Exactly.
Yep, and that goes along with one of our sayings we say all the time on our podcast.
We have two, actually.
Well, yeah, there's kind of two. It's mine, I guess you could say.
Whoa,
It's
I have one too.
Don't treat the diagnosis, treat the patient. Is kind of like our big thing, is like, every person's different. We have seen it. And so it's just a way we can talk things out on our podcast, because sometimes, at least I've seen it personally, and I've even caught myself doing it, is working in the same setting and working with the same PT. You kind of get in this routine of just the habits you do. And so sometimes it's hard to pull yourself out of it. And by just having an open discussion with those within the community, it's like, oh, well, yeah, that's a cool concept. Why did I ever think about that? Trying that, maybe if this doesn't work. And it's also awesome just to see the way, like, we think a lot alike, but at the same time, very differently. And so it's kind of interesting to see how he'll approach something versus how I'll approach something. And it's really just a fun way to talk it out and learn at the same time.
Yeah.
So.
And then kind of just to feed on her. So the other one we say is, like, bodies don't read textbooks. So just because we learn all of this throughout school, it's like, oh, this is what you should be presenting with. Necessarily, that's not always going to be the case. So we've had a couple instances, and we'll kind of talk about it on the podcast too, like, oh, this is our patient with either MS or Parkinson's disease. And even though this is what the textbook says, our experiences show otherwise. So just kind of like little things like that is what we like to bring up.
Yeah. And then also paying attention to what that patient, what they're wanting to return to. So they have, everybody has different goals. The clinic that I work at, we see from college athletes all the way up just to 80 or 90-year-olds that just want to be able to walk again or garden again. So really paying attention to what the goals are to get them to that goal and going through, because it's easy to follow a protocol and it's easy to say, okay, well, you're not in any pain, here you go. And got a patient a while back, and she's like, I did therapy for my shoulder surgery and it was great, but then she played sports, and she's like, they never did any throwing anything with me. She said, I still can't throw. No pain, strength was okay, but never rehabbed through a throwing program to get back to that. So that was a big miss. And then it continued, even though wasn't in pain, she was still limited on what she could do afterwards. So it's very important as PTAs for sure because a lot of clinics, we spend a lot of time with them, with patients and too, and pick up on things that they want to be able to do, just in normal
And that
conversation.
just encourages them to also be more involved. Like if you know what they like to, like whether it's golfing, bowling, whatever the case is, if you know that's what they like to do, kind of having a program around that just makes them more eager to come back and be more involved.
Incorporating that into I played volleyball with a patient the other day, and I'm not a volleyball player at all by no means, but I was like, I feel like this is more work on me than you, but
it works for us too, because it's different. You're not just coming in and doing the same routine every single time. And I think that's the hard part that we can get into as PTAs in general, healthcare providers in general. I'm gonna put a blanket statement, is that we can get into our routines. And so like a lot of times on our podcast, what we talk about is like, how can you break some of that routine? What are some new ideas that you can bring up? Different ways to think about it, like we said.
So y'all kind of touched on it, but what content do y'all usually focus on for the podcast?
So kind of what we find interesting a little bit. Now, we try to pick things that we find right now, since we're kind of new still. We try to find things that are more relevant that we're seeing within the fields. So, like, I think we did one on rotator cuff. We've done one on Parkinson's. We've done some ones on like vestibular balance issues. So like we want a wide variety. So that way it's inclusive to whatever field you're in, because at some point, each of these, you might have an ortho patient overlapping an inpatient setting. Like it's not just to one setting. So we kind of wanted a whole variety of it.
So one episode typically we'll do like a pathology, and then usually Fridays we'll do more either like controversial things, so like cupping or taping, things that once we got into the field, it's hit or miss whether people like them or not. Some people are completely against it. Some people like them, which is great, but we kind of just touch on that. We touch like on the research, what does it say, and then we kind of go into kind of our opinions or our experiences if we've tried them, and kind of just.
And we try them too. Like we bought a cupping set, and we literally that night we cupped each other. We cupped some family members, and we got opinions. We asked about it. There's things that we brought up. For example, never cup someone if they're very light skinned and they have a wedding the next day. Don't do it. Yeah. It pops up like it covers. So like little things like that we just talk about and have fun with, and want to try things out, and like we want to do more. Like we recently, it will be coming up on our YouTube video soon. We tried out the K wave, I think it's called.
Oh yeah, the KT wave.
Yeah, the KT wave. It's like electromagnetic pulse that's supposed to be for chronic pain that you wear for 12 hours a day, 3 days in a row. And so we're like, let's try it. Why not?
I know somebody with chronic pain. Laura, her Achilles is really shot. So
like we're going to be discussing what's the goods, the bads. Like, did you feel anything? Did I feel anything? Trying different things. And sometimes we even talk about like, even if it's a placebo, is the placebo still worth doing it because they're valuing it?
They're finding value
in it. So we talk about some of, whether or not that's ethical to bill for something like that. If the research maybe doesn't support it, but the patient hands down swears by it. So like we just kind of talk about all of that and have some more like relaxed ones besides just doing pathology all the time. So,
yeah.
Take a little variety.
Good. So your podcast, where all do you put that to where we can listen to it? It's like, where is it available for us to listen?
So I know they dropped our main link in the chat there. We do upload to Podbean, but we also upload to Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and Spotify. Am I missing any? I think those are the main ones we try to upload to. So they upload every Tuesday and Friday, and then we also upload some fun videos on YouTube, and that's where we're going to be doing more of like us trying things, like tools and trying different, like one of the ones upcoming, one spoiler, we're going to get different Graston tools or different instrument assisted
Mhm.
tools, and we're going to try them out on each other and be like, did you really feel a difference between this tool and this tool?
Yeah.
And we're going to make a YouTube video on that. And so that's every Wednesday, or almost every Wednesday. We're working on that
Yeah,
one
we're working
still,
on
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
for the YouTube videos.
That's good. That's a lot of
No,
frequent videos or podcasts. That's a lot of frequent. It's a lot of work.
Yeah, we try to keep them short to about 30 minutes. So that way it's like you can listen to them while you're on your way to work or during your lunch break, or, you know, they weren't too long. There's more short little spurts. And as we kind of get deeper and longer into our podcast, like we want to dive deeper into certain things, like some of them, like Parkinson's, we kind of touch over because there's just so much in it. And so like as we kind of go farther in, we want to dive in even deeper into some things, trying, you know, finding more new research. So having a wide variety and things that people can kind of go back and listen to too, of like, oh, hey, I remember, you know, they talked about this new research that's out and this new technique. Oh, what was that? And then people can reference back to it too.
Yeah, and then we try to bring up to like the continuing education credits. So we just had an episode on like instruments. So we'll talk about the Graston program versus the Rock Tape program. For Parkinson's disease, we talked about the Get Big program, or what's it called? I think something.
Get loud, I thought.
Yeah, get loud and
Get loud and get
big
big
and loud.
Big and loud.
So just kind of like specialties, kind of like credentialing that you can do just to kind of take your knowledge to like the next step, which are things that we
Yeah.
want to try to, and then kind of just talk about our experiences with them.
A good one too to look into. I just finished my advanced proficiency pathways through the APTA in orthopedics, and those are really good ones.
I have a
Talk
lot of
about like
questions.
that.
I have a lot of questions on that actually.
Yeah,
Well, and
so
that's
I
the thing
just
is, like,
completed
Yeah, one of the things is being in this field for so long, I didn't really realize that until we started doing some more research on it. And so that's the thing too. There's sometimes you don't even know what's out there because there is so much sometimes out there. Definitely when we get CEU wise, there is a lot of overwhelming ones. And you know, as we start diving in, you can start finding some more of that and discussing it and bringing it up. And we wanted to make that aware for people who have either been in the field for many years or those who just came out and are just starting their career or looking into PTAs. Like I know that some people are like, well, I don't know if I want to go PTA route because I feel like I stopped my education there. It's like, no, you can actually go further on.
Yeah, there's
so
so many
these-
options.
Exactly. And so those are things we want to highlight for our community. So
Mhm. Yeah, and that's what, and I'll drop in the chat to the PTA social media pages as well. I've been working on posting. I know I did a post about the advanced proficiency pathways a few months ago, but posting that kind of stuff on there, how we can further our education and different opportunities. The advanced proficiency pathways, I liked it because you're more in control of what classes and stuff. You have to have them to meet like a certain criteria, but a lot of mine, I was able to do an online subscription and take majority of the classes to where it's a little bit more cost effective when some of the other ones that I've looked at could be a $1,000 plus. So that way it's just another option. You can, of course, take courses that are that expensive, but you have a little bit more yourself control over your spending on that.
Yeah. And I think today we talked about pediatrics in our episode. And then I know there's a pediatric advanced proficiency pathway as well. And I feel like hopefully they come out with more and more. That way we can have more specialties for PTAs, which would be nice.
They have, let's just put in there. So there's acute care, cardiovascular, pulmonary, geriatrics, neurology, which neurology is a new one. Oncology and orthopedics and pediatrics, and then wound management. So even since last year, whenever I picked mine, they've added a few on there for that as well. So it's a really, really good option. And if anybody has any questions about that, just message me on my Instagram page. I'd love to help with any of that.
You have a little bit more.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Probably
I'm
both of
curious.
us, but yeah.
So why do you think it's important to share everything that you know, the PTA knowledge that we have, the importance of just sharing the PTA profession as a whole?
No, let me go first.
Yeah.
I think it's important because I've seen the difference between like going from a tech to a PTA to a PT, and I think like being in different fields. I think it's important to highlight PTAs. I think when we first started to research, oh, should we do a podcast? Should we do a YouTube channel? Like, what should we do? And there's so much content out there for PTs. There are so many PT like just I don't know, webinars, podcast, like everything.
There's a lot
So
more.
we think it's just we wanted to bring more light to PTAs just because I mean our roles are important too. And I think sharing it through our podcast and through YouTube, it's just another means for you to make your toolbox bigger. And the better you're able to know more things, the better you can treat your patients. And it's important to share your knowledge forward. And hopefully that with our podcast is what we're trying to do.
Yeah, like Ken kind of hit there definitely. And then like our big thing was paying it forward. Like you gain all this knowledge in school from the book, which is so great, but there's just something that you can't be taught until you're in the field. And then we also wanted to grow a space like Ken talked about. There's so much for PTs out there, but there wasn't as much for PTs. And we are a huge part of this community. And as we grow and get bigger and the field gets bigger and we start to see more specialties out there, we want to have a space where the community can come in and talk about it and talk about the things that they're doing. And really, our goal for this podcast and the YouTube videos, we want to make a space for the community, for PTAs to come in and have a voice. And because sometimes, at least in my case, it's not all the time, but I felt sometimes like you lose your voice because you're a PTA, and whether that's from a patient or from someone else you're working with, and that's not the case. And so we kind of
Yeah, I just want to bump it up a little bit.
Yeah.
wanted to get it out there for people.
Next thing is especially important too. We're working hard to stop all the insurance cuts and things as well, but showing that, hey, like we are licensed and we do have a knowledge base and we are qualified to treat your patients. And so I think that will also furthering our education will help a lot as well. Do we have any questions from the audience? Any questions, anybody? Any thoughts, comments? Everybody's quiet.
I was about to say, anybody want to hear anything in particular? Any suggestions? That's the one thing too, is like we have an Instagram page too. We post on there when our podcast is released, and then we also like to get feedback there too, of like what you guys want to hear. So definitely follow and let us know.
Hey, Mark. How are you?
Hi, good evening, everybody. I think many of you are in the evening hour. I'm still 4:23 here in the state of Oregon. So question I have, so the podcast, they sound very good. And can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Great.
Yes.
Are any of these open to receive continued, what we call continued competence in my state, like CEUs?
Not so much for our podcast right now. It's more of just kind of for personal use.
Gotcha.
That's what, like down the line, who knows? We never actually thought about that. But it's more of just kind of personal. If you'd like to grow and listen in and just bring up some topics, like we do want to bring more people on too. Like we had your current PT, my old PT, he came on and talked about dry needling, which I know some states don't even do. So like we had him on, and we brought him on because of the fact that's something PTAs can perform. And then we plan on future bringing some PTAs who have gone into different roles and how did they get to those roles. And we have a clinical director who said she'd come on. We have a I forgot what her official title is, but she's pretty much a operations director of multiple clinics, said she come on, who's a PTA. And so like we want to highlight those different avenues that you can go and continue to progress your career if you would like to, and how it went about. So
yeah, more personal versus CEUs at the moment, but hopefully one day we can bring that on. Yeah,
I think I would just suggest, I think that could be, you obviously have knowledge and expertise, and I think you're likely sharing a lot more than opinions, and I think it's valuable, and different states have different criteria for what constitutes continued competences, again, what we call it in Oregon. So, we're pretty loose in Oregon. I mean, as long as you're a licensed professional, you can at least offer credit for an audience member who's a PT or PTA. And you have
definitely have to look into that.
Yeah.
Because our state's definitely stricter, much more stricter on what we can. We were actually talking about it. We have used MedBridge in the past, which is, I don't know if anybody's used it before, but it's kind of like online courses. And they even had one on instrumented soft tissue. It's not covered in our state. It's covered in almost every state but ours. So that's definitely something in the future we can definitely look into, because I think that would be awesome if you guys could get credit for also listening to something maybe on your way to work or something like that too.
Yeah. And again, I don't want to put out, well, I didn't say this before, but Oregon isn't like a loosey-goosey state where, sorry for that term, where you can just, do anything for continued competency. It has to be done, within an hour or whatever it is, and it has to be something that's going to contribute to your growth as a professional. And I think what you're offering definitely has value. So thank you for doing the work you do.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you for the question. We do have a question in the comments and it's by Emily. What have been some positive and negative experiences you all have had with interprofessional collaboration? Do you have any suggestions for how PTs can best work with and advocate for the importance of PTAs?
Yeah, I definitely have seen both sides. I have worked with some really great PTs who have been all there for their PTAs, being hands-on and actually working as therapists. And I've seen some not so great ones where unfortunately they're treating you as a technician in your laundry. So the hard part with that is if they're kind of already set in their ways with the technician in the laundry, it's going to be tough. And I think the biggest thing is having an open conversation of what their expectations for you are. And that goes even when you have a good relationship with your PT. I kept a very open communication. We were on the same page with all of our patients. I even said I probably over communicated with him, but I think that's better than not. And because of that, we had a really good, he had really good trust in me, and we had a really good flowing work relationship. So when someone was hesitant to work with it, he would be like, no, she's like my right hand, and he backed me on that. It is tough, I will say, with working with other professions. Not so much, honestly. I've had really good experience with OT and speech. I've never felt put down by either of them. I will say nursing and some doctors, unfortunately, it can be tough because they also don't understand what we're licensed for. So most of them don't really actually even understand that we're licensed physical therapist assistants, that we go to school, we take a test that is governed federally, and that we actually have passed and we are licensed. They just sometimes think we're, again, glorified aides. And that's also kind of why we started this, was just to kind of get PTA's name out there too and say, hey, we're different, guys. We're not just techs. We are licensed to do a lot more, and we're trained to do a lot more. And so I think the biggest thing is just educating them in a way that is not putting down, I guess you could say. What's the word I'm looking for? You got it? It's not there.
Respectfully.
Yeah, exactly. Respectful way of doing it. So it's
I've
gonna
had
take
instances.
time.
Yeah, I have instances because I work PRN, and then with my regular job, I've worked with a lot of different PTs, but some of them don't know my knowledge base. So them saying, hey, or I'm about to get this person started on X, Y, and Z, well, I know how to do that. I'll go ahead and get them started for you. And it's a way of, one, helping them out, but two, like, hey, they know how to do that. And then also, I like having conversations with my PTs, like updates, saying, hey, this person is having this, and this going on. This has gotten better. This is still lacking. I thought about doing X, Y, and Z to get us towards this goal. What are your thoughts on that? And really taking the team approach. Communication, I think, goes a long way. Just talking to them. They know what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are. You can ask other professionals, hey, I'm not really comfortable with this certain injury. I haven't really treated it before. Do you have any advice or things that you would like to get started with this person? So I think that definitely opening up the communication, it can be intimidating, especially as a new grad. For me, like, I don't want to ever be seen as dumb. I mean, you do all these CEUs and you do all this continuing education. You went to school and did all the things. So you don't, there is no stupid question, is what I've learned. And I graduated PTA school in 2018. People that I've worked with have always been willing to lend a hand if there was something that I was unsure about. So I think just, creating that relationship. Yeah.
No,
And
I
being
agree. 'Cause, like,
both ways.
So like as a new grad, for me, it was definitely hard because, again, like, we learn a lot of the stuff in book, but like the experience, like, you can't beat that. So I think a great way to communicate that is just, hey, like, for me personally, it was like a ACL repair, just because I know like the protocols for that are ridiculous and when they can return to certain activities. So I would just get my PT and be like, hey, can I work with this patient with you? Or if they were working with them, can I just observe you, see like what you're doing, what you need to be careful with? Just because, when you're a new grad, like, you would rather be safe than sorry, because at the end of the day, you don't want to hurt anybody, but it's like, again, you don't want to make yourself seem dumb or incompetent. Like, you still want to be involved, still learn. So as the PT sees you wanting to be involved, that can help their confidence in you knowing on what you're doing as well.
Yeah, and I think just piggybacking on that real quick is, I used to go up to my PTs and ask them, how do you like it done? So then that way you're also on the same page with your PT, because they might have a preferred way of doing a certain mode. They might have a preferred way to treat a certain, injury. So communicating, and that's not saying that you don't know how to do it. It's just, how do they prefer to be done? Can sometimes create that good trusting bond with them too, right up front. So.
Had PTs that are like, don't believe.
You froze on them. Did Macy freeze for anybody else?
Some will do strengthening, but am I frozen?
You're freezing on us, Macy.
Oh no.
Well, I believe Tracy had a question real quick. Let me see. I don't know if I can unmute her. There we go.
I just unmuted myself. Did that work?
Perfect. Yes.
Okay. All right. I think, hang on, I've been driving, but I just parked. So I'll show you who I am here. Tracy Hards, I'm the, PTA caucus rep for New York. I just first wanted to say thank you. You guys are obviously so passionate about our field. It's enlightening to see, and I'm so grateful that you've taken it to this level. I think many of us on here, though, would be intimidated at creating our own podcast. So I wanted to ask you if you have any suggestions for local reps for like ways to do this at a smaller scale, or if you've seen any success with like in-person socials or anything like that we could be doing in our districts or things like that. If you guys have had any other insight, because you certainly have taken it to a whole new level. So
yeah, I'm not gonna lie, it took off a little faster than we thought too, which is great. We're super excited, and we appreciate everybody. Like, I honestly thought, like, we started this in February, I think. It was our first one. We were
like March, I think.
Yeah, right around that, and it's taken off, and it's been amazing. And I will tell you, I was one of those persons, like, when Ken first approached me with this, I was like, you want me to do what? You want me to talk? As much as I love to talk, talking to other people makes me really nervous. So I totally get where you're coming from. I think getting involved with maybe even your clinic itself and doing a clinic ran exercise. I think that's a great way to start practicing getting talking a little bit more, and then again joining those socials and getting involved. And that's where I think our community can grow, because of the fact that you know, to be honest, until we really truly started this, we weren't really too involved in it, and now it's made us want to get involved even more. Wants to get our hands in state level, we want to go to the, you know, meetings, we want to do all that kind of stuff. So it is tough, but I think hitting them probably when they're coming out of school, and really maybe you start integrating that even more in school, I think would have been made me feel more comfortable. Yeah. And so like that's like, if you're in school, I would definitely recommend start putting yourself out there, and then find a buddy. Take a buddy with you. I'm not a person who likes to go by myself. Take a buddy to you with you to one of the socials, or make it like a clinic activity where you guys actually take the time and you guys go to an event that your APTA is hosting within your area. Those are like the little steps that I definitely think that you could start doing to kind of put yourself out there a little bit more, versus just jumping in and starting a podcast.
But I do agree with her. Like as soon as we started this, we've been wanting to be more and more involved. So it's been a good stepping stone to kind of seeing what more potential there was out there. But yeah, I think starting small, starting in your community, and just kind of seeing what programs are out there. Like even if it's just like the APTA programs, they have a lot of great programs out there. But we've been searching up there even like a lot more recently, ever since we started this.
Yeah.
But,
And
go
sorry.
ahead.
Oh, I was about to say the only thing I could think of too is like, it felt like we kind of knew that there was some out there, but honestly, not till we started looking did we find as much as we did. And it might be more beneficial if like we start going to the clinics more and advertising at the clinics where, you know, these PTAs and PTs work, and saying, hey, by the way, we wanted to drop by and say we're having this social on this event, we'd love for you guys to go meet people within your city or your route, like, and kind of pull people in that way. Because like sometimes definitely, I don't know, if your school's not talking about it, then you're really not going to have that much idea
about it.
what's going on, because it does differ from state, city, all that kind of stuff, how much they get involved in the community sometimes. So like I know we have monthly meetings, but that was kind of like all I knew. And then as I started diving in, I was like, oh, there's a lot more. We do like a lot more stuff than I would have known. So I think that could be somewhere that us in general maybe can get better at, and is kind of hitting those more local areas where, you know, we're actually treating and working.
I agree. I don't know if I'm still frozen or not. Am I good?
You're good.
You're good.
Okay. But I agree with that. I didn't know going through school. I really didn't know anything about what all the APTA had to offer about the social events. It really wasn't until I was invited from another professional I was working with to go to a social that I even knew that they existed or were a thing. But it's a great way to network. They're a lot of fun. I know the ones I've been to, like they do raffles and games and stuff, and it's a great way to meet other professionals and connections. You know, you might have somebody a patient come to your clinic that you don't really know much about whatever they have going on, but you met a friend at that social that's what they specialize in, and they know a lot about it. So I think that it makes our profession as a whole a lot stronger and better. But I think that, I agree, going to schools, doing advertising in clinics. And so, because if you're not actively looking for it, you're not really gonna find it.
Yeah, find much. It's just tougher.
And then also, Tracy, like another way is like social media has become such a big thing. TikTok, you know, Instagram, YouTube. Like if you're not ready to dive into those YouTubes or podcasts, but like maybe posting about some of your experience on Instagram, if you want to get into it a little bit more, you could start off there where you're not out there talking to everybody, but you're kind of dabbling your feet a little bit in it, or, if anybody, we welcome anybody. If anybody wants to be on our podcast, we love to have more people involved from our community. Reach out to us. You never know, like, that's kind of like how we kind of got on here a little bit is, we started going on Instagram and talking about our podcast. And then, Macy reached out to us and we said, we'd love to do it. And so you can start off with these little things and then build, and you can control your own how much you want to do, if that makes sense too. Hopefully, did that answer your question?
It did. Thank you. I appreciate it. I hope others appreciate the answers too.
Thanks.
Thank you for the question. But yeah, I just want to open up with I put our Instagram and Facebook pages in the chat. I'd love for y'all to follow. I do post. Usually I don't do socials because there's so many in so many of the different states. But if there's a certain event or conference or whatever, if you see it, you send it to me and want me to show it, I'm there. If you have any content that you would like to share, something you're passionate about or a project you're working on, I would love to hear nothing more than about that. And be able to share that with all the other PTAs that I get to reach out and talk to on a regular basis, which is pretty awesome. So yeah, any content and stuff that y'all want to see, I want these social media pages to represent PTAs as a whole. And, just like with y'all's podcast too, suggestions, and we'll run with it. Whatever you want to learn more about or see.
Yeah, we want this to be a community for PTAs, and so we really want your guys' suggestions on topic you want to hear about. Like there's one time Justin Bieber got Ramsay Hunt syndrome, and we discussed it. Because it's something that you don't normally hear about, but everybody was talking about it then. So if there's something that might not be common, but you're like, hey, I would find this an interesting topic, let us know. We're always looking to find new stuff, talk about new things,
and just learn ourselves, really.
Yeah,
it might be something we have no idea about, and it's just
fun.
Something to dive into.
And we'll be honest too, we're straight up, we're like, we're not experts at this. If you are, please leave a comment. But we talk about it, and that's the best part, is opening that dialogue for our community to have those discussions and just be open. By all means, I don't think anybody could ever say they understand or know everything, and that's totally okay, and that's why our podcast is the way it is. So
I agree.
Any last questions before we wrap up? Nope. Okay. I want to thank you all for coming and joining us, supporting, our APTA, PTA pages, and then also the podcast. It really is great. Love listening to them and learning all the content. They're entertaining to listen to, so it's not like a normal.
We definitely appreciate everybody coming out.
It's like brother sister here bickering sometimes.
It really is.
It makes it fun. It makes it fun. I just wanted to thank you all for coming out, and thank you so much, Laura and Ken, for spending your afternoon or evening, I don't know what your time zone is, but with me. I really appreciate it.
No, thank you, and thank you everyone for listening. And if you ever have questions for us,
just reach out.
Let us know. Yeah, we're very open.
Thank you all.